Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France, and of course you good old boys from Canada. You know, I got to find someone to say old Canada to, so I think we'll wait till the Blue Jays start doing their things, Big C. And we love you in Africa. You know we love the Big C. Big C, there's still no one we love more than you good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave. Big C, how's it going for you good old boys down south on May 24th, 2018, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, we're like you. We're trying to figure out the national anthem. You know, since 81 is off the slate,
yeah.
And now that they're saying that everyone has to stand for the NFL one, you know, not being anti-anything,
yeah,
just trying to figure out who's in charge.
Well, I think it's the guy, what they say back in the day, the man with the most money rules, or the pile method. You pile how much money you have, I'll pile how much money I have, and the person with the biggest pile wins. You know, we have a lot going on in this beautiful country of ours. This is what the First Amendment is about. And it's about to be tested every time people have an opinion. But that's what makes our country beautiful. We have NBA basketball. I tell you, I don't want to see King James not playing in the NBA Finals. I think them good old boys in Boston, they have their own thoughts. And Golden State and Houston, they have their own things going. What's more valuable, vibranium or is the oil? We'll find out. Into the NBA was more valuable. Also, some good old boys in baseball doing their thing. But no matter what you're into, Big C, I want to start out by just something a little bit lighthearted. You know, I was listening to some music on the radio just the other day, and you know, we talk about Jeffrey Osborne so much. He had a song, I think it was the LTD, and they had a song called Stand Up LTD, and they had so many other great songs. And I think when you think about this diaspora of beautiful black talent, they sang songs that mattered. It wasn't about, you know, smack it up, whip it, flip it, drop it down, bangity bang, and bop. The guys do it now and they make $1 million. What happened to the class in music that LTD sang back in the day? And maybe we could get our mainstream media to have class in how we report on the news. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you look at groups like that, those are groups who grew up during segregation in America, which there was a different style of music emulating from those days. A lot of the church was an influence on music of African-American era, the 50s and 60s, and even early 70s, Charlton. So a lot of those young men were in church choirs, you know, college choirs, and that's a lot of times how they all met.
Yeah.
And so when you look at artists today, anybody with a laptop has a studio.
Yes.
So everyone is sampling music from other eras and putting together some rhyme behind it.
Yeah.
So, you know, as far as the intake of a song, I think a lot of people don't want to be understood about what they're saying.
Yeah.
Because half the songs are profanity and they're looped over and over on the radio to cut out the certain words.
Yeah.
As far as meaning of songs come about the history and era of times that people live in. The evolvement, the evolution of the minority race during that time, the togetherness of it of the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and had a message and a direction that the country and the minorities were going in at that time.
Yeah.
And so the music resonated a lot of their thoughts and feelings, whether it was family, whether it was love, whether it was aspirations.
Yep.
And now that since a lot of lost direction has been put there through the media and also disenchantment when we see how African Americans are treated.
Yeah.
You look at the young player from the Milwaukee Bucks for just where he should have got a simple parking ticket.
Yeah.
He gets arrested and tased.
Yeah.
So a lot of the music is from the frustration that minorities get in society now. We look at all these movements that are going on that really stem from what minorities are going through. You know, you even look at this new rule that the NFL just passed, Charlton.
Yeah.
Saying stand for the national anthem.
Yeah.
The reason why the NFL did that, Charlton, is that the NFL is not like the NBA, okay? In the NBA, when there was an outcry against criminal justice reform in America, it was the stars that spoke out.
Yeah.
So the NBA stayed somewhat silent and then wanted to have a behind-the-door meeting with those stars to see what they could do to, remedy the situation.
Yes.
When you look at the NFL, Charlton, the stars have not stood up. They have not spoken out. When you look at Colin Kaepernick really as a solo actor, and the rest of the players that stood up were role players.
Yes.
They were not stars of the league. Where you look at the NBA, when you look at the ESPY Awards, you had 4 of the top players in the league stand up.
Yes.
You had entire teams that made statements through T-shirts or whatever they did during their warm-ups.
I remember.
The NBA took notice of that. In the NFL, you did not see any marquee players,
yes,
per se, stand up and back Colin Kaepernick in any kind of way. And so that gave the owners all the leverage.
Yeah.
Because the star players stood back and let this happen. They said, hey, my money's good.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about social injustice. It doesn't affect me.
Right.
Because I'm one of the highest paid players on the team and in the league. So that was the difference in what you saw in the owners just making, okay.
Yeah, go right ahead, Big C. I think I lost a little bit, Big C. We'll work on getting your microphone back, but I just want to bring that point up that everything that we do, it all has to do with how do we actually say what's on our mind, because we do have First Amendment rights. Everybody has the right to speak what's on our mind, and I just want to make sure that everybody understands that this is what makes America great. I know there's some people who are frustrated, but music has always brought us together. That's why I wanted to open the show with LTD, Stand Up LTD, and I think we have your microphone back. We'll test it in just a second. But there's another group that a lot of people understand about. They sing about love, and they sing about hope and joy, and one of the greatest musicians out there, the greatest entertainers, the late Marvin Gaye. And he had a song called What's Going On, and Mercy, Mercy Me. And a lot of things that he talked about, it was about people getting together and loving each other, not hating each other. And I think if we tie in what's happening, whether it's the NFL or sometimes in society and politics, there's not enough love. But he did mention in his songs that only love can conquer hate. I want to tie in why what we get used to hearing so many times is this constant beat of blankety blank this, you blankety blank that, I'm going to shoot him up here, I'm going to shoot him up there. How that's changed the tone of how we all treat each other. Big C, your thoughts? So your thoughts again on Marvin Gaye, Big C. He's saying about love can conquer hate, and I want to tie it into our politics today and even what the NFL just did. Big C, your thought?
Well, Charlton, if you think about that album from Marvin Gaye, Mercy, Mercy Me, that's probably the most political album of all time, released in 1970, 71, around that time, Charlton.
Yeah.
Where, the Vietnam War was a huge conflict, and just social injustice in America was rampant even at that time.
Yep, it sure
but
was.
The political message of his song, if you just sit back and listen to the dialogue of what he's saying, cross-referenced America.
Yeah.
The stance.
Okay, see, I got you back. Sorry about that. We were having some technical difficulties. I don't know if you throw some moonshine on the phone line down there, Big Z, or is it the White House it may be Putin. I'm sorry, Big C. We were talking about Trump. Maybe Putin's listening. They're trying to hack the Big C Sports Show the way they hacked the election. Big C, your thoughts on Marvin Gaye?
Well, Charlton, Marvin Gaye emulates to what's going on right now with the NFL owners with this new move that they've made about their stance about players having to stand during the national anthem. Charlton, this was more of a shaming move than it was a move to protect the national anthem.
Yeah.
What they were saying that players could stand in the locker room while the national anthem is playing. But what does that do to that player, Charlton? It puts him on showcase coming out of the locker room after the national anthem. So what draws more attention? And I don't know if the owner's given this much thought.
Yeah.
What would draw more attention? Players coming out of the locker room after the national anthem, or players kneeling on the sideline? Charlton, what you're doing as a league now is that you're taking away the right to be a man or an individual. That's what they're telling people.
Yeah.
That if you're going to work for us, and I understand everybody has rules, and they say that this rule now would place a player under the conduct detrimental to the league.
Yeah.
Now you think about this. We get players all the time with DUIs, spousal abuse, drug suspensions, all of these things. And you're saying that a player in a nonviolent action is going to be disciplined in the same level that they are.
Yes.
That's how far this league has reached with its decision making. So when a player comes out of the locker room after the national anthem has been played,
yeah,
isn't that drawing attention to yourself, Charlton?
Yeah.
So isn't that in line for the fine? If you read the wording that the NFL is going to put out on this, conduct detrimental, if you draw attention to yourself from the national anthem, then you're going to be fined.
Yeah.
So I think that every player that comes out of the locker room after the national anthem has been played is going to be fined. Plus, you're going to have owners saying that if you stay in the locker room, you're going to be fined and disciplined.
Yeah.
So they're really coming after players in a way that this has never been seen before in any kind of professional sports stuff. And I want to touch on that a little further.
Yeah.
You know, we have the president in the White House, who is the owner of a professional football team in the New Jersey Generals in the USFL.
Yes.
Matter of fact, he was the key reason why that league failed, because he wanted to challenge the NFL and sue the NFL. So he really has no interest in the NFL other than hatred. But if you go back to the Easter ceremony, an annual Easter ceremony that's held every year at the White House.
Oh, yeah.
If you go back, look on YouTube, Google it on your phone, White House Easter ceremony 2018. You'll see the president, once the national anthem starts to play, his wife and his son has their hand on their chest. His wife takes her left hand, slaps him on his right hand, and tells him to salute the flag. Here's a man that says, and has the audacity to say, that they should not be in this country if they can't salute the flag.
Wow.
He was unwilling to salute the flag until he was forced to do it by his immigrant wife. You think about it. He got an immigrant wife that's more knowledgeable of U.S. policy than what he is.
Yeah.
And I challenge all of his base to Google the White House Easter ceremony 2018. You will see him standing on the porch at the White House while the national anthem is being sung, and he has not even saluted the flag. So here's a guy who's totally hypocritical, Charles.
Well, you know, I think sometimes when we say ask his base knows. You know, I think about Woodrow Wilson back in, I think it was The Birth of a Nation when that came out, and he actually gave it a standing ovation when they were lynching black Americans. And to him, that was entertainment. I'm talking about President of the United States, Woodrow Wilson. You can Google that too. And I look at Trump and I look at Steve Kerr. I'll tell you why I like Steve Kerr. Not just because he was a great basketball player at University of Arizona, went on to play for the Chicago Bulls with the great Michael Jordan, also played under Coach Pop down in San Antonio, and now the coach of the Golden State Warriors. But this is what I say to my white brethren. He has every advantage that this country allows. He's a multimillionaire. He's famous. He's been pretty much able to live a successful life ever since high school and college. But it doesn't make him silent. And what I love about conscientious people like the late Lyndon Baines Johnson is they say what's going to make our country better in the future. It's not just about now. And when he came out and he chastised President Trump and not in favor of Trump's behavior, especially towards people of color, I wish that more mainstream would do that. Not because it's POTUS, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, but most of us have kids that at some point in time they look up to us. And right or wrong, they might actually believe what we say, no matter what your color is. And I would hope that we, at least for the future generation of Americans, we teach them about fairness and equality. So when POTUS says, if you don't stand for the flag, maybe they should leave the country, I want to ask every woman that's a part of this Me Too movement, especially Gloria Allred, but for all the women that are part of this Me Too movement, what's the message that Trump should say to every man that grabs a woman by the vagina without her permission? That's called sexual assault. And I would love the Me Too movement not to be silent. You have access to media. I would hope that they can get on some of the talk shows and show women that you really do mean it, that there's no room for sexual assault. And ask POTUS, If he won't answer the question, ask the mainstream media. What is his message to men that grab women by the vagina, that sexually assault women, and threaten to sue them if they come forward? What is POTUS's message to the public on that, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, to think about people who are sexual offenders and have done it repeatedly like we have in the White House. And Harvey Weinstein, who is now finally under investigation for all his sexual misconduct. Yeah, you know, they're talking about bringing charges against him in New York, where the whole world should be in an outcry. I don't see Gloria Allred, you know, crying about Harvey Weinstein.
Maybe she don't know how to get to New York.
That, well, you know, she'll go all over the country to win a case.
Yeah.
But we have prominent women that have come out against Harvey Weinstein for decades and made these allegations against him. And he's been under investigation by people. But they've let go under the rug, Charlton, because of his power, his financial power. But the president is the same type of person as a Harvey Weinstein.
Sure is.
And I don't see how you let Harvey Weinstein go, Matt Lauer go, Donald Trump go, Bill O'Reilly go. You're talking these multimillionaires that are mainstream society, Charlton.
Yeah.
That are, as we say, disenfranchised white men.
Yeah.
They are. Just like these school shooters have been disenfranchised white men, white boys, however you want to say it. That's what these sexual predators have been for the most part. Disenchanted white males. And they've gotten away with it, whether they're politicians, whether they're media moguls, Charlton.
Yeah.
They've gotten away with it because they look like the same people that would sit on the jury. They look like the same person that lives next door to you. And in your mind, you're saying, well, how can he do that? I could never picture him being that type of person because he looks like you. Well, he looks like your uncle. He looks like your cousin. So mainstream America said, I can't identify with that.
Well, let me ask this question.
Just like with these school shooters, Charlton,
yeah.
They look like somebody you know.
Well,
so that's the reason why America doesn't cry anymore over it.
I wanna bring this up because the smart people do. It's just the dumb people that don't. So we're not talking to dumb people. I'm talking to smart people. I don't expect much from an ignorant person. I just want to stay out of their way. But for the intelligent people, and Donald Trump, like him or hate him, you know, he's an intelligent person. At least he went to school and he got educated. But it doesn't mean that he's socially conscious. But I still want to ask this question to my women. I want to say my women brethren. Can you call women brethren? Can we call women brethren, Big C? I think we can call them brethren, okay? Or my sisterin. How do we call it in the church? They say, you know, sister so-and-so, sister so-and-so. They're not related biologically, but they're related spiritually. They have an equal kinship. But I really want to ask the women of this great country that, for the most part, made this country great. And that garbage about behind every good man is a good woman? No. Out of the womb of every good woman came a good man. You can Google that, biology. But I just want to ask, and it's predominantly a white movement, this Me Too movement. I know Oprah had a rousing speech, but they put a white face on it. The Black Lives Matter movement was around long before the Me Too movement, but it had a black face, and mainstream media turned against it. Okay, don't think it's not by design. But I'm asking my white female brethren, the ones that don't want your daughter to be molested or maligned or beaten by men, when POTUS says to silence black voices that even made it possible for white women through the civil rights movement to advance in the workforce. Where are you so silent against POTUS? I know Oprah gave a speech, but why was it like a candle? It came and it went out. Big C, what can we do to our white female brethren when he says that SOBs should leave the country? So what do we do with all the sexual predators? And Trump's been accused of it with his own mouth. What do the women in the Me Too movement say to their daughters when they silently let Trump do what he does and say what he says, and they only clamor for about a minute or two? They don't have a march in the street about POTUS. And every 20 seconds, beautiful women all over this great country of ours are sexually assaulted, and they say nothing to POTUS about you leaving the country. Your thoughts?
Charlton, that's as important to them as it is the stance of these NFL players to turn their back on it. You know, it was all over the news today and everything, the network news, the sports stations and all, about these NFL players and their stance on the national anthem. We just had a school shooting a week ago
Yep.
Santa Fe, Texas. No one's talking about it anymore, Charlton. People have become desensitized on assault on Americans. They honestly have, Charlton. And that's just like sexual assault. It's just as bad as going out killing these high school kids, Charlton.
Yeah.
The president is taking a stance and voicing out yesterday and today on the NFL stance on disciplining players during the national anthem. He didn't make a comment on Santa Fe, Texas, Charlton.
No, he did not.
Not one in the last 2 days.
Google
but
it.
He's made comments on the NFL in the last 2 days. As an American citizen, even as his base, what to you is more relevant? Is the NFL players kneeling for the national anthem, or are high school students being assassinated while they're trying to learn? Which one is more relevant to our society in America? Which one is more damning? You're going to tell me that these NFL players that are taking a knee in nonviolence, that are protesting violence, matter of fact, they're protesting the damn violence that's killing the kids.
They sure are.
That's what they're doing. You think about it. Here's the president and everybody else protesting against the NFL players who are protesting against the violence that are killing your kids.
Yep.
Talking about social injustice. You're going to tell me that kids getting killed in high school is not social injustice, Charlton? Colin Kaepernick had it right. But because Colin Kaepernick has it right, every one of those damn NFL owners sponsor the NRA, Charlton.
Yep.
They do. They sponsor the NRA. The NRA is allowing your kids to be killed in school. There's no backlash from the president against the NRA, but he's backlashing black Americans.
Yeah.
That's what he did. That's a racial scenario that's gone on about the national anthem. It's not about justice or injustice. It's become racial. And that's what the NFL owners don't want.
Well,
they don't want to empower the black players. That is the reason why you haven't seen white players, the stars of the league, back the black players.
Yeah,
that's why. They've been told not to.
Or they'll touch you on the shoulder, but they won't come out and really take much of a stand. But I got to ask you this one more question, and then because I think I'm in tune with a lot of women that have gone through things, because I was raised by a woman. So I'm not obtuse to things that affect women and that women go through. I want to make sure that I also give equal time to women. I want to make sure that on the Big C Sports Show, it's not just about us talking about sports or us talking about business and hoping that we're going to make a statement that speaks for women. I want to make sure that all of us, Big C, that no matter who we are, male or a woman, man or woman, that it's so important that we reach out to the women in our country and let the women in our country know that you don't have to be a woman to advocate for women. You can be someone that's of the male gender, and you can advocate for women. You don't just have to be the woman. And that's why when I listen to someone like a Steve Kerr, and as a Caucasian male, I appreciate the fact that as a Caucasian male, he speaks about some of the things that affects everybody. That's for mainstream. Steve Kerr's not going to get the pushback that Colin Kaepernick got as an African American standing up for Black Lives Matter, which affects all people. It keeps everybody safe. So I would just hope, and the fact that we think about this, and I want to just say this because it's bothersome when I hear that African Americans, and I'll get you back on Big C, but I just want to get this thought out there, Big C. When we hear that African Americans are saying what it takes to keep people safe, I'm proud of Coach Kerr for speaking, and Coach Kerr talking about how he's not appreciative of what Donald Trump has done. So again, how can we get the Me Too movement to chastise Trump for telling people who are trying to bring attention to how to solve injustices in the black community and also with women? He says get the hell out of the country. Why are these women not chastising POTUS when he's the one who's grabbing women by the vagina? Big C, your thoughts? Okay, Big C, your thoughts? I know we're having some technical difficulty. I got to tell Putin, quit tapping into the Big C Sports Line. Go ahead, Big C, your thoughts.
Well, Charlton, it's not that it has not been spoken about. It's the media coverage that lacks. They're just like we don't get any coverage on this last school shooting a week ago in Texas. The Me Too movement, that's not what the media wants to cover for the most part. If you have women speaking up against the powers to be in this country, Charlton, it lets everybody know that people are uneasy. You know, you think about all the women that have spoken up, Charlton, how silent they have been. Not because they've spoken, Charlton, because they don't get coverage any longer. You think about it. The most coverage against the president from any woman was an adult film star, okay?
Yeah.
The most coverage from anybody. Why? Sex sells in America, okay?
Yeah, that's true.
It was intriguing. It was vibrant to people because they wanted to know the dirt about his 4-minute session with her.
Yeah.
That's what they wanted to know. You know, what did he do during this 4-minute interlude that they had that was worth $130,000?
I don't know what you could do in 4 minutes outside of untie your shoes, Big C. I mean, I don't understand, but that's how he gets down. And it's just a shame that even the NFL owners, I'm sure most of them have at least a wife or a daughter. Most of them at least have a mother. And I just want the Me Too movement not to be so silent when you have people trying to defend your own daughter. And we shout them down and we tell them you can't do anything but shut up and dribble or shut up and play. And there are people who say, well, they're the owners. They can do what they want to do. No, there's laws in this country. You can't break the law just because you have money. And when teachers marched just this year because they were underpaid, they didn't get fired. They got the pay raise because when you make noise, it works, Big C. And I just hope that for all people, especially women, that are sometimes afraid to stand up for themselves. That's why God created the Big C Sports Show. And that's why we always say that Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe. And I say that not out of ego. I say it because I'm sure you're tired of watching talking heads on TV just telling you what you could already see in the newspaper. You know who won the game. They're going to give you their opinion about who's going to be the best shooter, who's going to play the best defense, who's going to hit the most home runs, who can throw the football the farthest. You already know that stuff. But you know when you're having some pain, labor pains, well, there's something in the hospital called ICU. When you got pains, you go to the ICU. You don't go sit in the main lobby. And if there's people saying in certain communities that we have labor pains, let's address it. Not to shout them down, but we can fix it. And I'll say one more thing on this, Big C, and I get your thoughts before we get on some sports. I would hope that the Me Too movement, because it has a mainstream face, a Caucasian face to it, I hope that every Caucasian woman, we just celebrated Stacey Cunningham for being the COO of the New York Stock Exchange. There would be no white women in corporate America had it not been for black men and women marching. That started with the civil rights movement, and the women got the right to vote because of it. And when the doors of equality were open, white women went to the front of the line. I hope that this pushback against people of color saying, how do we keep our kids safe? Please don't stay silent for that. We stood up for the Me Too cause. Please stand up for Black Lives Matter, because all lives matter, but not if you're silent. Big C, your thoughts.
Well, Charlton, silence has dimmed so many lights over the decades in America. And right now we've become silent in the media as far as what really matters on any side, whether it's in sports, whether it's in mainstream society, Charlton. When you silence women, Charlton, on this Me Too movement, which they have, you silence the sexual assault that has occurred in America. Because think about it. The news outlets, Charlton, their main anchors were the reasons for a lot of this sexual misconduct.
That's deep.
Harvey Weinstein controls Hollywood. That's a major media outlet, Charlton. NBC, Matt Lauer was their top morning guy. That's a major news outlet, Charlton.
Yeah.
Fox News. Bill O'Reilly was their top news guy, Charlton. And this has been all throughout the media, Charlton, even on the sports broadcast networks. There have been people let go for sexual misconduct allegations. So if the top people in your company are the ones who are committing the sexual misconduct, Charlton, how do you not silence women, okay?
Wow.
They're the ones who are silencing them. Roger Ailes, who was the president of Fox, Charlton, who did over $100 million in settlements prior to them firing him finally.
Hold on, how much?
Over $100 million prior to his death and being fired by Fox. How do you not silence the women, Charlton? If you're the one, you're the president of the network, okay? Who's going to go on the air and say something if you're the president? You're the same guy who hired Bill O'Reilly and kept him covered up.
Yeah.
And you're going to tell me that NBC News knew nothing about Matt Lauer?
Oh, they were hiding
until
it.
It finally came from Charlton. That had been going on since the Olympics. We know that in Rio. That was 2 years prior to him being fired.
So are you saying...
But, you know, he can speak about the swimmer down there. You know, he rode him for, you know, lying.
Yeah,
but he was on the broadcast lying every day. And not telling people what he was forcing women to do.
So let me ask this.
So when the people in the media, Charlton, are in control, that's the limit of what you're going to get when you get a story.
So for Gloria Allred and all the Me Too movement, that I'm really behind it as long as you support me. If I scratch your back, scratch mine too. I'm really, as an African-American man, I'm concerned about the lives of all people, but when I know that black men are 7 times more likely than white men to be falsely accused of a crime. We saw what just happened in Milwaukee, okay? But has Donald Trump told Matt Lauer, Harvey Weinstein, Bill O'Reilly to get the hell out of the country for sexually assaulting women? And we know the answer is no. He only told black men to shut up for trying to defend your children, unless you're dumb enough to vote for him, and there have been some people dumb enough to do that. And I don't know what it would take for you think about it, housing and urban development, a neurosurgeon, Ben Carson. Now, just because he has black skin pigmentation doesn't mean he understands what even he went through as a youth or his mother went through when he was a young boy. He's rich now. He can he can immune himself to that now. But I wonder if he talked to Carson, and Carson brought in some of the black women that raised him and asked them to speak with Trump about what it took to keep his butt safe when he was growing up, because this anathema that's for black Americans that law enforcement has had for years, that's why we have the Kerner report. And mainstream, they just want to, hey, Big C, who won the game last night? What was the score? Oh, my God. I mean, who do you think we're going to have in the finals? While Milwaukee's being arrested, people are wanting to know how many home runs did somebody hit. And it's okay to talk about all of it, but just don't be ignorant. And I know some of my radio brethren and TV brethren, you're dumb. So you can't talk about it because it will show the whole world how ignorant you are. So I understand you fight against it. So we don't talk to dumb people. We're talking to the intelligent folks. Okay? And I mean that with all my heart. So, again, as we go forward, I ask the Me Too movement and more mainstream, whether it's right or wrong, we don't care what color you are if you're sexually assaulted. We defend women. You can Google that, our program. It's never been just defending black women. It's everybody. And I just want Me Too movement to do the same. Big C, your final thought before we get on some sports. Big C, your thoughts.
Well, Charlton, it just comes down to the media outlets. Whether it's mainstream media, whether it's sports media. As long as you protect the villains, they will keep doing what they do.
Sure will.
You're going to tell me that the broadcast networks, the major sports broadcast networks, knew nothing about Larry Nassar, what was going on.
Oh, they knew.
They had investigated that, but they kept it silent, Charlton. Why should we break the story? Let these young girls be victimized. We don't want to go out there and destroy somebody's career, not an individual who, has this esteemed background of being this doctor. We don't want to destroy that over a few young girl allegations. Come finding out there was over 250 of them.
Wow.
Went from a few to over 250. But they don't want to break the story because they don't want to destroy this young man, this middle-aged man's career.
Yes.
This takes me back to the judge in San Jose a couple of years ago, Charlton, when he didn't want to destroy this young swimmer from Stanford's life.
I recall.
After he'd raped a young lady.
Would he get 3 months?
Said, well, we don't want to destroy his life because he has too many years to live. This young woman will get over the rape that he did to her.
Wow.
But we can't destroy his life because of what he did. So I'm going to let him out of jail after 3 months. That's enough discipline for him. He's learned his lesson after being in jail for 3 months, after raping this woman and destroying her mentally and emotionally for the rest of her life. And 3 months is enough for him. Yeah. This is how male society thinks in America, Charlton, mainstream male society. They devalue women, they devalue girls, and then they're not going to punish the guys who are committing the crimes. Oh, Bill Cosby, though, he got convicted.
Well, he's black.
But the other guys are not because they're part of the mainstream, Charlton.
Yeah, and I know that everybody understands that the truth shall set you free. Tell it from the mountaintop, the truth will set you free. And we hope you can defend all people, especially as a father. I just can't be a silent lion. You know, lions protect their cubs. Could anyone walk into a lion's den and try to hurt the cub? I hope that the Me Too movement can treat Black Lives Matter like they're your cubs too. Because black Americans fought for everybody, fought in every war, fought for everybody. But when POTUS has such disdain and anathema for the civil rights movement and John Lewis and Rosa Parks, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the whole diaspora of black society that said, pay attention to what's going on. You know, we ended lynchings in this country. It didn't get ended by mainstream. It's when people stood up against it. Even Woodrow Wilson, president of the United States, he applauded Birth of a Nation, the lynching of black men. Google it. You're presidents. So don't think because someone's a president that they do right. Big C, I do want to say that sports is a billion-dollar industry, and boys and girls sports is the foundation of this billion-dollar industry. And we work with Ben and Mark. They work with Big C Sports, and they cover all sports teams. Whether you're a pro team, a collegiate team, a high school team, or your mom and pop league, when you reach out to them, let them know that Big C sent you at 800-772-8624. That's 800-772-8624. You know what I love about the Big C Sports Show, Big C? I get to interact with so many athletes and entertainers and smart people, not only in the United States, but even Emily from Australia that follows Big C Sports. And I don't take it light at all what I'm going to say. We all have a responsibility to put the fire out when it's burning. And every fireman understands what I'm saying. If there's a fire in a woman's life, if they're being sexually assaulted, we have a fiduciary obligation as a fireman to put it out. But we have a moral obligation as a human being to put it out. If we see any abuse going on in our societies, we have to, as people, put it out. Unless you're the one starting those fires. And so as we go forward in this discussion about what people believe in, just imagine if you're the one being victimized and Trump's grabbing your crotch as you sit silently saying, well, that's a problem. That's somebody else's problem. We all have mothers and daughters, and that's what we'll always talk about on the Big C Sports. Big C, in the world of sports, the NHL, they finally have that great Stanley Cup chase, Lord Stanley's Cup. But I know absent are my good old friends from the north. So in respect to my good old boys up north, I got to say one more time, whoa, Canada. Okay, it wasn't old Canada, it's whoa, Canada, Big C. And I hope that they can at least tune in. I don't know what the TV ratings would be from Canada watching Lord Stanley's Cup. It's almost like watching another man take your woman, and then you're going to applaud him as he walks her down the aisle, Big C. Would you applaud the man that stole your woman, now he's going to walk her down the aisle? Would you take that invitation and keep it, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I guess, you know, the Molson beer sales will be down and the Labatt beer sales will be down in Canada, or they may be up just out of depression. You never know.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's going to be hard to tune it in, you know, up north of the border when you think about it. When Canadians think about Las Vegas, they're thinking about slot machines, okay?
Yeah.
They're not thinking about ice. You know, and going to Washington, they're thinking about the buddy Donald Trump. But, you know, this is the best scenario that you can have as far as the Stanley Cup of the Final Four teams that were left, Charlton. They have Las Vegas, this inaugural franchise, making it to the Stanley Cup in their inaugural season, Charlton, having the best season in the history of an inaugural franchise in any major sports, Charlton.
Yeah.
You really have to take your hat off to this organization, how they were put together. I know Gary Bettman didn't expect for this to happen, and he's praying that they don't win the Stanley Cup.
Why would you say that?
You have a three-time MVP in Alex Ovechkin, Charlton, in Washington. Is it his time finally to hoist the Stanley Cup? He's led the league in scoring on several occasions, Charlton, but he's never gotten to this point. He's always taken the early exit. He reminds me a lot of Chris Paul.
Yes.
When it comes to the NHL. He was never able to get to the finals. Now he's gotten to the finals, Charlton. He's made it to the Stanley Cup. Is it finally his time to hoist it off?
I think it's a great, I know you, and you can Google Big C actually call that it would be Washington versus Las Vegas. It's great for the media. You got to have a major media market, and Tampa just not compared to the East Coast in that Washington, D.C. area. But I love the fact that NHL can shine. And, speaking of shine, have you donated any shine to pour in North Stanley's Cup, Big C? Or are you hauling it to yourself like the good old boys do down south, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I think Prohibition is still active up and down that I-95 border.
You saw Smokey the Bandit.
They're sensitive about the drinks that you bring into Las Vegas
okay.
also. The liquor commission out there want to have control of everything that's poured in the casinos.
Yes, that's true. That's why they bring you free drinks as long as you lose the money down to Vegas. They don't bring you drinks unless you're in there. They just thought it was funny. Why are you going to drink and gamble at the same time? Doesn't make any sense. But it's great for Lord Stanley's Cup. Really looking forward to it. And I can't wait until we actually have the chance to say, in the land of the free, the home of the brave, that we actually excluded Canada from having their own cup. So Donald Trump didn't build a wall between the United States and Canada, but the NHL sure did build one between the United States and Canada. Big C, I want to touch on last night in the NBA. LeBron James and looked a little bit tired, and you can only do so much to carry a whole team. Obviously, he needs a shot of vibranium. I think if he had some more vibranium in his system, he would have a lot of that superhuman energy, and he has to bring it. But it can't just be him. You can't just have one person expending himself and all of his energy every single game. But give me your thoughts on, there's two things going on. Boston, they're younger. They tend to play better as a unit. And they have one guy really to overturn, and that's LeBron James. Your thoughts on what can Cleveland do to get back? I think going home to get that home cooking and that vibranium and that soup they're going to be drinking, I think it's going to help. But what about Game 7 if we get that far back in Boston, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you got to get to a Game 6 first and get through that. I've heard so much talk about LeBron James being tired last night. I think this is the same amount of games for the Boston Celtics as it is for the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Yeah.
Same amount of games for the Houston Rockets as it is for the Golden State Warriors. But all the emphasis is being put on one guy being tired. Yes, he's played a copious amount of minutes, more minutes than anybody else on the court in that series. But also, Charlton, you got to understand the mental strain. Is he mental or physically tired? Is he tired of his teammates not performing up to what they should do, Charlton? Is he tired of his teammates, his starting lineup, not equaling the points that he has in 5 games, Charlton? Is that what he's tired of? He's sitting over there, guys with wide open shots, not being able to knock them down. Is that what he's tired of?
Probably.
I think it's easy for the media to say that he's physically tired. I think every player at this point of this juncture, Charlton, in both series is physically tired. But the mental part of an athlete drains you more than anything else. And guys who have not been challenged mentally don't understand that. LeBron is a leader. And by being a leader, you like to incorporate the rest of your teammates in what's going on.
Yeah.
And when you're trusting these guys to perform because you're getting the ball for wide open looks, in his situation, he could take all the shots. And then everybody would say he's just a hog. This is all he does, taking all the shots. But he's trying to get assists. We talked about that the other night, Charlton, that, Boston is happy for LeBron to get 40, 45 points.
Yes.
That means his assists are down because he shot the ball so much to get to that point. But when he's not scoring 45 points, Charlton, and he's trying to stay around 30 and dish the ball to his teammates, and they're not knocking it down, that's what he's tired of.
Yeah.
I've gotten you an open look, and you can't knock it down. You're paid millions of dollars to hit that wide open jump, to hit that layup, and you're not doing it. So it becomes frustrating. That's the draining part of LeBron right now. It's the mental frustration and being tired of his teammates not performing.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. When you bring it up, you got to have, it's not like it's tennis was just you, like Serena Williams and the French Open coming up. It's not just you, your whole team. But give me your thoughts. The Celtics, they pushed the Cavs. They pushed them hard, Big C. And I look at Tatum. He's a young boy. He's a young lion. But he kind of stole the show last night. Give me your thoughts on how impressive he was. And Boston with him, no matter what happens in this series, they have a bright future with him leading the show and I don't know if they'll get Kyrie Irving back or even Gordon Hayward, but this young Lion, Lions go out when it's time to eat. The Lions go eat. They don't ask you. They just take it. They don't have a retirement plan. They also become dinner, too, by the younger, stronger Lions, Big C. But Tatum, when you have your debutante ball, it's your coming out party for young girls. Well, this seems to be the coming out party for him, and he's doing it against the backdrop of the number one athlete in the NBA universe in LeBron James. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you look at Tatum, Brown, and Rozier, three young players over the last couple of years that the Celtics have brought into their organization, they've evolved into solid players. And I think, players that have been on top of the pinnacle throughout their career, you think about Brown and Tatum, not Brown and Tatum, but Brown and Rozier, they were there last year.
Yes.
They were in the Eastern Finals last year, so this is not new territory for them. You look at Tatum, how he's evolved here in his rookie year, and we've seen some outstanding rookie performances throughout the playoffs.
Yes.
But the guy that no one is really paying attention to is Al Horford, okay? Al Horford is the unsung leader of this group. He's that veteran glue that every organization needs. He's been knocked out of the playoffs 5 times by LeBron James in the last several years. 5 times.
Wow.
You go back to when he was in Atlanta and last year in Boston. So he knows what the wrath of James is, okay?
Yes.
And he's trying to overcome that. And so he's a guy who can mentally prep his younger teammates how to get around the pitfalls that he has suffered behind James getting to these finals in consecutive years, okay?
Yes.
When he was in Atlanta and they had the best record in the East, and they were still knocked out by James.
Yeah.
You look at where Boston fared last year, Charlton, and they were knocked out by James. They won the East last year.
Yes.
So he's a guy who's been frustrated and seen these scenarios. So he's a guy knowing that his career is not going to be as long as what's left as he's had already, okay?
Yeah.
So he is pushing his young teammates, walking them through the pitfalls that they could face. And that's the plus of having veteran leadership. You're seeing the guys on Boston listen, okay? You're not seeing the guys on Cleveland listen. You have guys like J.R. Smith who says, well, I've been here before.
Yeah.
Kevin Love, I've been here before. I'm a former All-Star. But you got the other guys, Charlton. You got not Horford, but the Kyle Korver,
yeah,
who was a part of that 60-win team.
He was.
With Horford when they were in Atlanta.
Yeah.
So he knows, but being there with James, he has to take a back seat, even though he's a shooter. The young guys that they brought in via trade, Charlton, they were fans when they brought them in, and they're still fans in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Because they don't know how to take a leadership role when LeBron is on the floor. And when he goes to the bench, if you've noticed this in every game that LeBron has gone to the bench, all opposing teams, Indiana, Toronto, and Boston,
yeah,
have made great runs offensively. And he's forced to come back into the game because his teammates can't operate without him.
That's a very good point.
That's what he's tired of.
Yeah, that's a good point. You got to have the other guys step up. So if you're Cleveland, no matter what happens with LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers, you're just watching greatness, and I love watching him play. I just wish he had more support around him. He needs a young pack of Lions that can bring it every game the way he does, Big C. And I want to get to this thought about Boston and the lineage, the legacy. We talk about leaving a legacy. This team doesn't remind me of the teams of the great Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, Robert Parrish, and Danny Ainge, and Dennis Johnson. They don't remind me of that at all. But they have the youth that gives people a lot of hope that they can be that again. Is that too much to ask that we can compare this team, if they had Kyrie Irving and also Hayward back, that they could maybe build what they built when they had the great Larry Bird? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this team reminds me more of even going back further, the Bill Russell-led team.
Oh, yeah.
A team that was led from the inside out. This was a team that was mobile, that could spread the floor. There was no unsung superstars on the team, Charlton. Everybody had an equal role, even though the team was led by Bill Russell.
Yeah.
It didn't make any difference who had the ball, whether it was Cousy, whether it was Jones. These guys handled the ball. Heinsohn, Havlicek. They all played their roles within that organization, Charlton. And they were a solid team for decades.
Yeah.
This is the same type of team that you're looking at. You know, the people that they thought would be the backbone of this team in Hayward and Irving, Charlton,
Yes.
they're non-factors, and it's made this team stronger. And that's why I feel that it would behoove Boston to move both of those players in the offseason and bring in some even younger players that can follow what you have with these players that you have as a base right now, Charlton. The draft is loaded with players.
Yeah.
You can get draft picks for Hayward. You can get draft picks for Irving. That will come in and will gel more with this organization that you have now than what they will, because what you've developed here in the latter part of the year in the playoffs, Charlton,
Yes.
you don't want to have any of those players have to take a step back because you're trying to incorporate those two players into the lineup.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Big C. I tell you, when we talk about NBA, action is fantastic. There's something that happened in Golden State just a couple of days ago in Northern California, and we saw Golden State up 2-1, having a chance to go up 3-1, had a 10-point lead going into the fourth period, and I think maybe the second greatest player in the universe, in Kevin Durant, had the worst 2 minutes I saw of his career, at least. And I think when you talk about leaving a legacy, and there are people who think that Las Vegas has a big hand, and some people don't even know what that means, Big C. But I wouldn't expect him to have 2 turnovers in the last 2 minutes. Kind of a football analogy, a handoff to Harden, who doesn't even play defense, missing a bad shot from the baseline, and then throwing up another junk basket, right around top of the key to the side, left side of the key. And, I think they scored 12 points in the fourth period. So here's Houston. D'Antoni saying they played the best defense that he's seen them play. They played really hard and physical. If that's the case, why were there more fouls called on Golden State at home if Houston played as physical as they've ever played? That's opposite of what the officials saw. But you know what I'm talking about. Your thoughts? They're back down in Houston in the oil state, and they bring in a lot of gold with them, Big C. But Iguodala's not playing again, and I don't know how a guy's not playing when he was still playing after he got the knees banged. But he's going to miss 2 games. Who knows why? Just give me your thoughts on the feel of this game tonight. It really is a must-win for Houston, not as much for Golden State, but it really is a must-win for both teams. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, is definitely a must-win for both teams. It's intriguing when you get down to this time of the season, and you go back and you look at Golden State's history in the playoff runs that they've made in the last 4 seasons. When they've gotten knocked out or did not win the championship, Charlton, is because an integral player has been missing from the lineup.
Oh, yeah.
And the thing that you look at with Houston, as you say, D'Antonio said his team was as physical as they've been all year long, but yet they didn't get any fouls called on them.
Las Vegas, hello?
Yeah. Well, somebody's saying hello. That you can beat a team down physically and you don't get any fouls called on you.
Yeah.
And we saw that 2 years ago when Cleveland won the championship.
Yeah.
When Steph Curry was beat down physically, and no fouls were called. So,
yeah.
I mean, at times you wonder which game the officials are watching.
Yeah.
And the greatest basketball players in the world, 2 of the greatest offenses in NBA history are playing against each other in this series, Charlton.
Yes.
And it's about runs. It's about streaks. Golden State got off of their run in the fourth quarter. And when you look at what they did, in the fourth quarter, Kevin Durant, the last 8 minutes of the game was invisible.
Inexplicable.
Thompson couldn't hit a shot. Steph Curry couldn't knock down a 3 in the fourth.
And
where in the game before, you couldn't stop him.
And Draymond at 6'7" couldn't dunk from under the basket, Big C. It hit the high school kids that could make that dunk, but Draymond couldn't do it somehow inexplicably.
But I think the errant passes that were there by Golden State offensively is the thing that they have to shore up. At this stage of the game and that level of perfection, you can't have errant passes like that, throwing the ball to a guy who doesn't play defense. It reminded me of Georgetown in North Carolina in, I believe it was 83 championship down in New Orleans, NCAA championship, when Fred Brown threw the ball away to James Worthy.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, here it is, the game is gone. And so we're looking at situations like that. I think it'll be a lot neater game tonight. I think the officials won't swallow the whistles tonight that they will blow. They just won't let them play.
Yeah.
They're going to have to call some fouls just based on what the coach said and what everybody witnessed in Game 4.
Well, ironically, Chris Webber, he called the timeout when Michigan was playing. Also, that same team you were talking about in March Madness, he called a timeout. Ironically, he's on the sideline announcing the game, and sometimes he's laughing, and you think, what's he laughing about? But sometimes he said, it's happening again. I mean, it's almost like I just want to see some fair competition, no matter who wins. I mean, I'm partial to Golden State because it's easier to get out there and cover the games, but I want to see fairness. I want to see all guys trying, but I know I'm naive. And I also believe in the Tooth Fairy, and I believe in the Easter Bunny and all that stuff. But I want to get one more thought, too. We talked about Golden State and their, collapse or the mistakes. Even Kerr didn't call a timeout with about 11 seconds left to just gather everybody and get the shot off that he wanted. They went down and really had, Thompson and D'Antoni said, we played more physical than we've ever played. They didn't call fouls, so they're going to keep doing it, Big C. But even Kerr could have called the timeout and said, wait a minute, this is what we want to design. I mean, you got 11 seconds left in the season, not necessarily season, but in that game, and he didn't even do it. And there are people who go both ways on that. But I know if you got 11 seconds to decide if you win or lose, and you got a timeout in your back pocket, why are you taking it to the locker room? They don't give them back to you for the next game. Big C, in the final few minutes, what does Houston have to do to take advantage of what just happened to them with the officials not seeing the same game that D'Antoni saw in Oakland? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, they really have to press physically like they did already. You got to make the officials make the calls. That's what you have to do with Houston. Because James Harden offensively has not been a solid player at any point in this series. He's missed so many shots. I mean, he's got to be shooting about 40% from the floor.
Yeah.
So Houston really has to press it physically. And they got to stay in Golden State's face. They can't give them that leeway. Golden State, though, has to keep moving without the ball. And that's how they've got to get those cuts to the basket if they expect to be successful. Kevin Durant, there's nobody that can match him physically when he has the ball. Don't shy away from shooting. Take every shot that you see. And even the ones you don't see. Take it anyway.
Yeah, he did that last time, took some he didn't see. Final question. We talked about the All-NBA team and who got what and what players made it and who should have made it, who shouldn't have made it. When we look at Kerr and D'Antoni, do you think that one coach is coaching scared and the other's coaching with more passion, or do they balance each other out, Big C, in the way they've handled this game? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you look at it, Kerr is coaching from experience. He's been here. What are you going to tell these guys? They've been there. And if going back doesn't motivate the Golden State Warriors, the coach doesn't have the words for it. I mean, Phil Jackson didn't have to say much to the Chicago Bulls.
Yeah.
Neither did Aaron supposed to have to say a lot to the Miami Heat or Pat Riley to the Los Angeles Lakers. When you're a coach who has been there and you got the same roster that has been there before, you know what the pitfalls are.
Yes.
You know where you have to keep your runs going. D'Antonio has always been a coach that has pushed the envelope. He's always had his naysayers throughout his career. And he played a psychological game, you got to understand, Charlton, before Game 4.
Yeah.
He said all the pressure was on the Warriors, which turned out that it was. He said, we're playing with house money. They're the ones that are defending champs. We're just trying to get into the party.
And where do they get that house money? I think that's funny. Big C, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Bundini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. He would always tell Ali, with all you've got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young men rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, what I was looking at was these OTAs that are going on right now. Everybody was crying for the past couple of days that Tom Brady didn't show up for the Patriots for a voluntary situation. Wasn't mandatory. But nobody is crying about Andrew Luck, who hasn't showed up in 2 years and taking a snap.
Yeah.
And making as much money as any quarterback in the NFL. Think about equality. You got a guy who has won you multiple championships, who's in his 40s, said, I want to spend a little time with my wife and family. You got a guy that's making $144 million that hasn't taken a snap in 2 years.
Wow.
Don't even know if he can throw a football.
I tell you what, Big C, when you think about it, It makes you say, that's why we follow Big C Sports, and you can too every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide. You can follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, there's never, ever any excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.